wonderful. I'm asking this question on behalf of my mom, and she's new to the tradition. So the question is, why is there a skeleton at the front hall?
I would say it's probably because it's a small hall, so it's got to go somewhere, so they put it there. Actually, it's quite a good point. In Thailand, they always put the skeleton on the side of the hall because people don't like bowing to a skeleton. And this is the place for the Buddha. They prefer to focus on the Buddha, bow to the Buddha. So if you go to Ajahn Chah's monastery, he has a skeleton in his meditation hall, but it's on the side, or Wat Nanacha, it's on the side. So the actual purpose of the skeleton is it's a teaching aid, just as in a medical school you have a skeleton for studying anatomy, the human body, bone structure. Monks do this as well in their meditation, and not just monks, but lay practitioners as well. It's a part of the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness of the body involves not only being aware of your posture and developing clear comprehension in what you're doing, but also we practice mindfulness of, we call it the 32 parts of the body. So if you have the chanting book, one of the chants, you go through the 32 parts. Hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, skin, and you go through the organs and the bones and all the different liquids of the body. The Buddha divided them into 32 parts, and you can practice mindfulness directed to each part. And he compared the body to a chariot, but you could say car in this day and age. And just as you know, a car is made up of many component parts. There's metal and rubber, and there's the axles and the wheels and the engine and all the engine parts. There's many parts to a car. In the same way, a human body is made up of many parts. And as you direct mindfulness to focus on the parts, and one of them is the skeleton, it becomes more apparent to your mind that these body parts are not self. Are the bones a self? They're not a self. This body is more like something we rent, rental. We borrow it from the world, from the earth. The main component is earth, and then water, and then there's heat, and then there's the air we breathe in. These are 4 elements. That's another part of the mindfulness training. You're focusing on the fact that this body is made up of 4 elements. Are those elements self? They're not, are they? You look at them, you investigate them, you breathe in air every day, but is that air a self? It's just air. We don't grab the air as in my air. As soon as it comes into your body though, you have that sense of identification. This is me, this is myself. So it's my air, my lungs, my blood cells being oxygenated by the air. Temperature, we say my body, so sometimes we have a fever or we exercise and get hot. So we say I feel hot, that's me, I'm hot. But actually the heat doesn't belong to anyone, does it? It's just heat. Or sometimes you feel cold. You go to Melbourne, you'll feel cold. But that temperature is not a person, it's not a being, it's just temperature. So the hard elements in the body coming from the earth, like the bones, they're from the earth element. The earth element is not a person or a being, it's just the earth element. The air element, the temperature element, the water element, these are elements of nature that we borrow or rent. We borrow from the world into this body for a period of time, and then at the end of our life they go back to the earth, don't they? We scatter someone's ashes in the ocean or bury them under a tree or something. That's the body going back to the elements, because the body itself is not a person, a being, but our mind thinks it is, isn't it? It's another delusion. We go, this is me, I'm a self, and so we suffer when anything happens to our body. We don't want to get ill, we don't want injury, we don't like getting old, we want to look good, we don't like not looking good. Nobody wants to die. but we all have to die. So if you can train your mind to see this body as a collection of 32 parts, 4 elements, this is where you're developing real insight, wisdom into the nature, true nature of this physical body. It's not a person or a being. It's a collection of elements that come together. It's like consciousness, our mind borrows it. I'm going to use this body to do all the things I want to do in life, and then at the end of life, death, body goes back to the world, consciousness is left without a body. So if you still have attachment to the sense of self, consciousness goes, I want another body, let's get born again. So you get rebirth. This has already happened last life. You're here now because you wanted to be born. So whenever you get really stressed and you say, I wish I wasn't born, you have to remind yourself, well, actually I wanted to be born, that's why I'm here. If you really didn't want to be born, you wouldn't be here. But you are, because you wanted to be born from last life already. The only people who really don't want to be born or don't need to be born are arahants. They've reached Nibbana, the name of this center. Nibbana means the unborn, the uncreated, the unconditioned, the deathless. When the mind is seen into that, then it no longer attaches to the body as self. You still have a body and you look after it, but you don't grasp at it as self. So one of the ways they talk in Thailand, the forest monks, they say one who sees the skeleton in their body finds happiness in Nibbana, because they're seeing impermanence. And is there anyone sitting here who has no skeleton? No, we all have a skeleton. So you've all got the key to Nibbana right within you already. If you can see this skeleton as impermanent, as not self, then you're getting closer to Nibbana. But who does that? Nobody. Everyone is looking at other people. Oh, she looks nice, he looks handsome, I don't like her, I don't like him. We're always looking at the superficial. And that's how the world goes round, isn't it? We advertise and we present ourselves. No one presents themselves as a skeleton, except for Buddhist monks. We have a skeleton here. So it's actually telling you the truth right here, but we miss it all the time. If you see the skeleton every day to the point where you don't see it anymore, you get used to it, so you forget about it. If you really focus on it, you'll see the skeleton more and more in yourself. Maybe you notice your bones as you go through your day. You're aware of bones and how they feel, where they are, what they look like. That you take that into your own body and you become mindful of it. My sister, she just unfortunately had a really terrible car accident, and the doctor said she broke more bones than almost anyone else they've ever seen. All her bones were shattered. It was a terrible impact. She almost died, but luckily she didn't. And they've spent months repairing her bones, literally getting little bits of metal and screws and wire and all this, and reconstructing elbows and hips and leg bones. So she's become very aware of bones. And, it's like it changes your perception, doesn't it? You think of your body as me, my body, go here, go there. But as soon as something like that happens, you suddenly realise, oh, this body is not really a self. There's nothing I can do about it. And you give your body over to the doctors, and they try and reconstruct your bone structure. Not a very easy thing to do. They've been quite successful, I think. But it's not self, isn't it? And bones break. Bones don't last forever. You do your best to look after your body, of course, and you keep healthy and you eat well and you exercise and you do all the things you need to do. But it's a reflection. This body doesn't really belong to you. If it did, you could command it never get old, never get sick. Does it listen? No. Ajahn Chah used to say, your body is actually like the worst cheat ever. It's the most, it's like a confidence trickster who wins your trust and you look after this body your whole life, you bathe it, you clothe it, you feed it, you shape it and do this and do that, and even when you get older you go and get plastic surgery. And what's the most expensive surgery? Plastic surgery. It make you look nice. And then what does your body do? It just gets old and dies on you. Well, it's not a very good investment, is it? You put all this time and money into it and it just dies on you. So, learn the Dhamma, then you won't be so attached to your body. You'll be more with the Dhamma than the body. That's what you're aiming for. Train this mind to see the Dhamma, know the Dhamma. And this guy, skeleton, is helping.
Thank you so much, Paul. I'd just like to follow up on what you said, talking about consciousness, that wanting to be born, and so it goes to a new body and finds rebirth. Can you talk more about a fallacy and a thinking in saying, if I was truly believing I will not be born, I do not want to be reborn, but does that mean upon death there's no reborn happening? Or is that, what's the error in that thinking, or what's that delusion?
Yeah, well, usually it's coming from aversion, isn't it? You're stressed, you're suffering, you can't stand it anymore, so you don't want anything, you don't want life, because life has become so painful and so stressful. But that's still a form of wanting, isn't it? So we call that vibhava-tanha, wanting not to become, not to be, not to have. But it's still wanting. It's not the same as Nibbana, where somebody has seen that there's no point grasping at the body or the five khandhas, feelings, thoughts. There's no point because they're temporary and they are not self, so your mind doesn't want to grasp them. For one who's reached Nibbana, they don't want to grasp at them anymore, they don't identify with them as self anymore. And that's different. They see through the five khandhas, they see them as things to be let go of, whereas somebody who's just doesn't want to be born, usually that's being prompted by suffering. Life is suffering, I don't want suffering, I don't want to be born again. But that's actually a little bit of aversion there, isn't it? It's aversion to the experiences they're having. It's not coming from clarity of insight, from developing the path. It's just an emotional, basically, a rejection of life, rejection of the suffering of life, whatever. So it's different.
Is there any question?
So you mentioned when, for instance, people want to wake up early, just what you said. I sometimes also set up a certain time and then I can wake up back. I wake up but I don't stand up and do functioning because I feel like, okay, maybe I will just sleep a little bit more, even though I already woke up. So how to be able to actually, as soon as you wake up, then stand up and do the stuff that you need to do?
Well, make a plan or an aspiration in your mind before you go to sleep. I would say that's the best way to do it. Before you go to sleep, you say, when I wake up, I'm going to get up. You make that plan really clear in your mind so that when you wake up, you remember it. You go, I've set my heart on getting up when I wake up, so I'm going to do it. And sometimes it's harder than others, but you just make your effort. But the best one is to prepare before you go to sleep. Already before you go to sleep, you know what you're going to do when you wake up. And there's other practical things you can do. So one really good thing is, if you do need an alarm clock to get up, you put your alarm clock over there in the corner of the room. So when you wake up, you got that alarm just going and going and going. So you have to get up and go. Turn it off and then you're out. Monks do funny things. Sometimes monks get their friend to get them up. So their friend comes round and says, get up. Oh, I have to get up. You just have to work out what will work for you to get you up, get you out of bed in the morning. But actually mentally preparing before you go to sleep at night will help.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any last question? You take the opportunity to ask the last one.
Hi Ajahn, I would like to ask, how do we use mindfulness to overcome
Is there a particular fear?
fears? Seeing funeral.
Funeral.
Yeah, I get a lot of fear from that.
So fear of death, fear of ghosts, fear of death and the idea of death.
Yeah. Just walking past the funeral makes me scared.
Depends on your character, but there's different ways you can approach it. One is to develop the thought of compassion. So you see a funeral, you know somebody's died, so there'll be a lot of sad people there. You have compassion for the people at the funeral, and then the person themselves, they died, they've lost their chance to make merit currently, or they died. Once you died, who knows when you'll be reborn as a human again. So you have the thought of compassion for them. May they attain a good rebirth, may they find peace and happiness in their next life. For the living, may they get through their grief, may they carry on with their life and do more good in their life and not be obstructed by their grief. So you recognize the sadness of the situation, but also you put your mind on a more positive goal and outcome, and you keep doing that. That's one reflection. Another may be that you see that the funeral, you know, oh, yeah, that person's died, one day I'm going to die as well, so I better use my time more to do more good, practice more, because they've reminded me I'm going to die too. So waking up to the truth. So that's another reflection you could have. Life is mixed up with pleasure and pain, happiness and sadness. It's a mixture. So we have to sometimes be quite tough and patient with our own emotions. You may feel fear, but try to see that death and funerals is just normal. It's part of life, and we have to get used to it. But then see beyond it. And that's where the compassion and the kindness can come. They died, it's sad for them. I wish them well. If it's somebody you know, think of the good of that person, all the good things they've done in their life while they were alive. Now they're gone, but you remember the goodness of their life. So you're not just afraid or sad, you actually can even rejoice in the goodness of their life. So your aim is always to turn your mind from an unwholesome emotion or train of thought into a more skillful one. You have to work at it.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Okay, thank you, Long Po, for sharing your insights with us.